Chapter 51. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 16. Teacher, 1, Translator. 549690339. On this day, Li Hao didn't do anything but ask and listen. Apart from seeing Lu Long once in the morning, he was nowhere to be seen the rest of the time. He might have gone to set up something. As for the law enforcement team, they didn't transfer Li Hao away. Perhaps they were worried about alerting the enemy, so they didn't go through the transfer procedures. Other than the few members of the demon hunting team, only Wang Jie in the critical room knew about the situation. At 6 in the afternoon. It was time to get off work. Li Hao packed up. The Vortex Mk3 was still with him. Although Lu Yen allowed him to choose some weapons, Li Hao did not choose them for the time being. The more powerful a weapon was, the more inconvenient it was to carry around. As for the grenades, Li Hao took a few. They weren't too big and could be kept in his pocket, provided they didn't explode. He looked up at the sky. It was clear. It probably wouldn't rain tonight. Demon Hunting Squad. Li Hao got on the bicycle. He looked back at the inspector's office, and then at the law enforcement building in the distance. He seemed to feel a pair of eyes, or several pairs of eyes, observing him. Lu Long. Now, were these people already staring at him? Had the bait plan already begun? I can't not trust Lu Long, but I can't completely trust him either. Li Hao had his own judgment. He wasn't familiar with Lu Long, so it was impossible for them to hit it off at first sight. If Lu Long was on the side of justice, he might not have intentionally harmed Li Hao. However, if he had really been killed by the Red Shadow, then so be it. Lu Long would not even bat an eye if he sacrificed himself to kill a superhuman. Even the teacher had nothing to say. Lu Long didn't kill him personally, so his teacher couldn't say anything. Li Hao judged that Lu Long didn't ask about the saber and sword, perhaps it had something to do with his teacher. The position of captain of the law enforcement team still restricted Lu Long. After all, he wasn't on the side of the evil order. He was from the inspection office, and there was a night patrol watching his back. Even if teacher didn't do anything, actually, he still vaguely saved me. Li Hao was well aware that without Yuan Shua, even if Lu Long didn't kill him, he would definitely ask about the sword and saber. He might even use the excuse of evidence as bait to force Li Hao to hand it over. But now, the other party was clearly feigning ignorance, obviously because he was wary of Yuan Shua. I'm still too weak. A creak was heard. Li Hao got on his bicycle. He didn't know if the Red Shadows were watching him or if Lu Long and the others were following him. These people were deliberately avoiding him, so it would be difficult for him to notice them. Only self-improvement. Li Hao said quietly. Even Lu Yen, who was extremely warm to him, didn't dare to believe him. If he really encountered danger, she might not necessarily save him. I hope I can be stronger before they make their move. Li Hao didn't dare to drink too much of the sword water before. On one hand, it took a long time to digest, and on the other hand, he was worried that he would use up all the mysterious energy. But at this moment, Li Hao realized that if he died, it would be useless no matter how much mysterious energy he had. Therefore, he had to make more and drink more. Not only that, Li Hao even considered whether he could destroy the jade sword and release more mysterious energy. At this point, he didn't care whether it was a family heirloom. If the jade sword didn't work, wasn't there a stone knife at home? The bicycle moved forward slowly. Li Hao's eyes were dazzled, and he didn't care about anything else. Soon, they arrived at Qiming Community. Block 6, Unit 302. Before he even entered the door, the Black Panther scuttled out from the corner like a shadow. This fellow's speed was even faster than before. Woof! The Black Panther wagged its tail, as if to say that everything was safe today. After Li Hao left, no one seemed to care about where he lived, nor did anyone come to check. Li Hao, on the other hand, glanced at the Black Panther, which seemed to be a little bigger than yesterday, and patted its head. He pushed the door open and entered. Li Hao took off his clothes and turned on the light. The room was still dark, and the curtains were tightly drawn. Li Hao sat on the sofa and thought about everything that had happened in the past 2 days. It was too fast. It made him feel like he was having a hard time digesting the information, and he was unable to clearly analyze the various clues. The Demon Hunting Squad, the Red Shadow Side, the Night Patrollers, the 8 Great Families. And I may be the sole survivor of the 8 Great Families. The Red Shadow's target is me, and the Demon Hunter Squad's target is the supers on the Red Shadow side. The Night Patrolmen might not come because they are busy, but Teacher is about to set off, so the other party might have sent someone here. The Red Shadow we met last night and the existence behind the Red Shadow, were they all of the Red Shadow's men, or was it just one of them? How many supers were there? Li Hao didn't know. However, Li Hao guessed that there might be more than one. The one last night was probably just a stalker and not all of the Red Shadow's people. Lu Long, have you considered this? If it wasn't just one superhuman, but 2, 3, or even 4, would the Demon Hunting Squad be able to handle it? Li Hao gently knocked on the table. Although the Demon Hunting Squad had given him some help, they still couldn't give him a sense of security. There were thousands of things to think about. At this moment, no one could help him. The next moment, he thought of someone. After a moment of hesitation, Li Hao took out his communicator. He needed his teacher's help, not necessarily practical help. Even if it was just to comfort him, it was fine. Silver City Ancient Academy. Yuan Shuo was practicing an extremely ugly set of fist techniques in the courtyard. It was not accurate to call it a fist technique, but more like a fluttering old hen. Chapter 52. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 16. Teacher, 2, Translator. 549690339. This wasn't a chicken fist, but a flying bird technique. It was one of the 5 birds technique. Tiger, deer, bear, ape, and bird. The ape technique was light and allowed one to escape easily. The flying bird technique was also a light technique, but it was even better at escaping than the ape technique. Of course, each of the 5 bird techniques was a killing technique. Be it the ape art or the flying bird art, they all had a set of killing techniques. It was just that Li Hao hadn't studied these things deeply and thoroughly enough. He had always practiced the ape art as an escape art. Buzz. Yuan Shuo's movements were slow and he did not seem to be using much strength. When he punched, it was like an old hen flapping its wings. There was no beauty to it. However, the sound of air exploding was heard in the courtyard. A martial master with over 100 points. Bove, he was once one of the top figures in the field of martial Dao. However, as he grew older, his physical strength declined. Coupled with the appearance of superpowers and the proliferation of firearms, this generation had gradually retired from the martial arts world. In the eyes of outsiders, he was just a pure scholar, a top expert in the ancient civilization department. Ding ding ding. Yuan Shuo was pulled out of the thump after a ring. He glanced at the communicator on the side and picked it up. You went to the law enforcement team. N. Yuan Shuo wasn't surprised. Since he, the last disciple, had said that he was going, he wouldn't hesitate. It was as if he knew what Li Hao needed. Not confident anymore. Yuan Shuo laughed. Did Lu Long give you a bad scare today? Do you think you're useless and can't survive outside? A little. Li Hao didn't deny it. Teacher, he said softly, with the appearance of superpowers, do you think Shu Wen still has a future? After witnessing the strength of those people, Li Hao thought, is there really a future for studying literature? In the future, would this world be the world of supers? Would they, the non-supers, be able to live and work in peace like they did now? There's naturally no way out if you only study literature. But pure violence has no way out. I've never heard of anyone who can rule over everything just by using force. Yuan Shua said firmly. The wisdom of humans was the key to unifying the world and becoming the master of the world. For martial artists to learn literature, it took twice the effort with half the results. For scholars to learn martial arts, it was twice the result with half the effort. Don't think that you've wasted all your time. Wrong, you're only building your foundation. Even if you really enter the superpower realm, you'll realize that wisdom and knowledge are priceless treasures that will make your path smoother. He needed to clear up the students' confusion. Preach, teach, and dispel doubts. It was Li Hao's first time coming into contact with superpowers, so it was normal for him to doubt himself. But at this moment, he couldn't waver his belief. Back then, my superpowers weren't obvious, and I was one of the few people who stood at the top of the world in terms of martial arts. But I'm famous not because I can fight, but because of my research in the field of ancient civilization. After that, firearms developed rapidly. In our generation, those who purely practiced martial arts didn't have a good ending. The more famous they were, the faster they died. I, on the other hand, have lived to this day, and even now, I'm a guest of honor in the eyes of the supers. Even though there are some restrictions, I'm still doing well. Supers are strong now, but that doesn't mean that no one can restrain them or punish them. Yuan Shua said a lot, and Li Hao listened quietly. His mood gradually became more cheerful. After a while, Yuan Shua laughed heartily and said, "Don't worry too much about the law enforcement team. If you really encounter any trouble, Lu Long and the others might not be able to solve it. As I said before, you can come to my place to lie low." Teacher, do the night patrols know about the situation in Blizzard Silver City? Li Hao asked after some thought. I'm not sure. I might know, but even if I know, I might not appear immediately. Lu Long and the others are just cannon fodder and pathfinders. Yuan Shua's words were dripping with blood, and the true situation of the demon hunting squad was bone-chilling. There aren't many night watchers, and every superhuman is a treasure that cannot be easily sacrificed. The Silver City situation was still unclear, so he would let Lu Long and the other cannon fodders test the waters first. If Lu Long and the others could successfully take it down, then everyone would be happy. If they can't take them down, the night patrolmen will be able to make a general judgment. They will know themselves and their enemies, and know what kind of strength they should use to deal with the Silver City's troubles. This is the reason why the night patrolmen rarely appear. He wanted to maintain his own sense of mystery and let outsiders not know the inside story. Lu Long and the other peripheral organizations were only pathfinders. If they died, then so be it. It was not a loss. If he could kill supers, advance, and join the night patrollers, he would be able to strengthen the night patrollers. This was the nature of the dark clouds in Blizzard Silver City. As for Yuan Shua, he had long seen through these intrinsic qualities. Li Hao gently exhaled. How realistic. His teacher's words allowed him to see through some of the fog. He also completely understood that the demon hunting squad was not completely unrelated to the night patrollers. Perhaps Lu Long himself was an outer member of the night patrollers. It was not impossible. At this moment, Yuan Shua suddenly said, "Don't think too much. If you don't want to come to my place, I won't force you to come. Since you've already understood some of the situation, I'll explain it to you briefly so that you can have as much self-protection as possible." What? Li Hao had thought that his teacher was going to give him a treasure, but that wasn't the case. The next moment, Yuan Shua suddenly used a secret code to communicate with him. This was a special way of communication between Yuan Shua and his students. For people like Yuan Shua, it was very easy to create a special way of transmitting information. Chapter 53. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 16. Teacher, 3, Translator. 549690339, the Li family's sword, the Zhang family's saber. The appearance of these families in the song and their supernatural items were a joke in the past. But now, it may not be the case. Li Hao was startled, but he returned to normal in the next moment. Dioviko, even Lu Long could guess it, not to mention his own teacher. In Li Hao's opinion, his teacher was perhaps the smartest and wisest person he had ever met. If you have these things, it'll be a blessing and also a curse. Zhang Yuan's death might be related to this. It's obvious that you've been targeted by supers, and their target might be these things. As for the Song of the Eight Great Families, it has been passed down for countless years. Even I, who have heard it, don't know when it started spreading, and there are no records of it. It has been passed down from generation to generation. According to my research, it might be related to the ancient civilization. You are my student, so you know a little about the ancient civilization. The new Book of Five Birds was actually found in the ruins of the ancient civilization, and I made some modifications to it later. Li Hao didn't say anything and just listened to his teacher. There's a common characteristic about the treasures in the song. Outsiders are unable to use them. Perhaps the reason why Zhang Yuan was burned was to extract his bloodline, soul, or mental energy, and thus, was able to use the Zhang clan saber. As for the time span, I've made some deductions. It's very likely that the other party's superpower means are limited. Every time we burn the other party's blood and soul, it may cause the method to enter a dormant period. However, it is obvious that the enemy is improving. Or rather, the dormancy period is shortening. Li Hao hurriedly nodded, even though Yuan Shua couldn't see him. But at this moment, Li Hao was full of admiration. His teacher didn't know anything. He only read the file yesterday, but he could deduce so many things today. Li Hao couldn't help but be impressed. Of course, it also had to do with his teacher's vast knowledge. There's one more thing. The other party always strikes on rainy days, which means that his ability might only be able to be used on rainy days. What he needs is not just to kill, but to extract what he obtains from you after killing you. At this point, Yuan Shua paused for a moment before he continued, don't underestimate the person behind this case. You have to know that if the first person to die is from the Zheng family, it means that the other party has been around for at least 15 years. You have to know that superpowers only appeared about 20 years ago. If the other party was a superpower from the start, do you know what that means? The other party is an old hand among the supers, not a newbie who has just absorbed energy into his body. Of course, this might not be done by one person, Yuan Shua said. Perhaps the supers who started this had already left, and now it's the other party's organization members or disciples who are keeping watch. After all, a strong person can't stay in Silver City forever. Li Hao took another deep breath. He had considered this point before, but not as carefully as his teacher. Had Lu Long considered this? You might not be able to use the Zhang family's saber. However, you can definitely do it with the Li family's sword. Superpowers should have existed since the ancient civilization era. Now, they have just been resurrected, and they did not appear all of a sudden. If you are the Li family descendant of the Li family swords, you can find a way to activate this sword if you have it. Activate. Li Hao finally spoke. The Li family's sword was a secret, but it wasn't a secret either. Those who had heard the Song of the Sun might have thought about it, but no one had seen it before. Was he considered to have activated? Water bubble sword. Yes, activate. It had been sealed for many years, so how could it be used so easily? I know many ways to activate it, but they are all too difficult for you. The simplest way is to bind it with blood. The premise is that this sword really belongs to your family and not stolen. Teacher, it's no use. Li Hao smiled bitterly. It was dripping with blood. Nonsense, it's definitely useless if you drip a drop of blood on it. Do you think a blood contract is just a stupid drop of blood? Was it not? Li Hao was speechless. Yuan Shuo continued, this blood is not just any blood. It's especially so for descendants like you who have been here for who knows how many generations. Your bloodline is already different. For you, it's possible to unseal the two types of blood. The first one is the blood from your heart. Actually, I don't recommend this because the damage is too great. However, if you encounter a life-and-death crisis and are almost killed by someone, you can stab your own heart. Don't be too harsh, just stab yourself to death. Li Hao was embarrassed. It was indeed dangerous. Second, cultivate the 5 birds technique diligently to strengthen your physique and improve your bloodline. If you can reach my level, you might be able to unseal yourself with a drop of blood. Li Hao was tempted. Over 100. However, he was running out of time. Teacher, are there any mysterious powers in the super items? He asked. Yes, and no. It depends on the situation. If yours has it, you can try to absorb a little. It might not be of much use. Yuan Shuo quickly replied. Li Hao was startled. Not much use. This was something that he had high hopes for. Teacher, isn't it said that one can become a super by drawing energy into the body? What are you thinking? It won't be that simple. Of course, I'm not too sure about your situation. Let me explain what I know. Some supernatural items contain some mysterious power, but it's very weak. If you can absorb it, it might help you improve your physique, but it won't be as useful as you think. It's almost impossible to become a superpower with it. Chapter 54. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 16. Teacher, 4, Translator. 549690339. Li Hao's eyes revealed a hint of disappointment. Of course, it's hard to say. After all, we have too little research on superpowers and we haven't been out for long. We don't have any specific reference case. Yuan Shuo continued, this is also the key point. You probably really have that thing. Then I'll teach you a set of breathing techniques that are not recorded in the new book of 5 birds. A breathing method. Yes, it's more complete than the breathing technique. I've combined many ancient books and reorganized them to complete it over the years. Because you, kid, don't know how to absorb the mysterious energy. Yuan Shuo laughed, you've never come into contact with superpowers before. It won't be of much use to teach you this. Even if you didn't come to me today, I would have come to you and taught you the new breathing technique of 5 birds. It's for the sake of absorbing the mysterious energy. However, in our daily lives, we almost can't absorb the mysterious energy. You're different. You might have already come into contact with it. This is your chance. Teacher, then can you draw? Me. Yuan Shuo laughed, you want to share it with me. Forget it, a super item might not have much mysterious power. To me, it's like a cup of water on a burning cart of firewood. Let me put it this way, the stronger you are, the harder it is to become a super. Our transformation is much more difficult than ordinary people. Lu Long actually had a high chance of advancing directly, but this guy's martial cultivation was not low, so it was particularly difficult for him to advance. If you don't have any foundation in martial arts, it'll be easier for you. Of course, you'll be weaker after you become a Starlight Master. Li Hao was suddenly enlightened. So that was how it was. That's why, a little bit of mystery energy is good for you, but for me, it's useless. If you can't become a superhuman after absorbing the mysterious energy, your martial arts foundation will become even stronger. As time goes on, it'll be hard for you to level up. It doesn't matter. Li Hao didn't really care. He was just curious. Teacher, you mean that the stronger the martial Dao foundation, the stronger it will be after the advancement? Nonsense. Take me, for example. I'm a martial master who's over 100. If I'm still on the same level as the weakest star light master after advancing, then what's the point of advancing? The weakest starlight master, if he really comes, it's hard to say who will be the one to kill who. Without saying much about himself, Yuan Shua said sternly, "All right, don't ask these useless questions. And don't think about me, you're too weak, it's a waste of time. I'll teach you the breathing technique of 5 birds, but you'd better remember that you're not allowed to teach it to anyone. Your teacher's hard work over the years is all on this. Superpowers have only been around for 20 years. The things that the Night Watchers have come up with might not even be as powerful as mine. This is the power of knowledge. They don't know **T about supers. Even though I'm not a superhuman, I knew about the existence of supers even earlier than these guys. I've read about them in books 40 years ago." After Yuan Shua praised himself for a while, he stopped talking nonsense and began to describe his breathing technique of 5 birds. At this moment, Li Hao was listening attentively. He felt that it was quite simple. Even though his teacher had praised it, he only felt that it was slightly better than the breathing technique. As for how much better it was, he didn't really have much of an opinion. What Li Hao didn't know was that Yuan Shua, who had been the first to learn about superpowers and studied the ancient civilization's superpowers, had not only gained his own understanding but also integrated a large number of the ancient civilization's superpowers into it. The breathing technique of 5 birds might sound simple, but it might be the most powerful cultivation method in the entire superpower realm. Li Hao, on the other hand, adjusted his breathing as he listened. The breathing method was not only different in the rhythm of breathing, but also contained other things, such as the adjustment of posture. At this moment, Li Hao was like a big frog, with his belly facing up and his 5 hearts facing the sky. His posture was very stupid. The starry sky sword, which had been silent all this time and could only be drawn out by the bubble sword, suddenly flickered as it hung on Li Hao's neck. In the next moment, a dense wave of mysterious energy poured into Li Hao's body. Originally, this mysterious energy would have leaked out very quickly. However, at this moment, Li Hao's pores seemed to be breathing as he swallowed a large amount of mysterious energy. Countless pores were absorbing the mysterious energy. It was faster than he had imagined, much faster than he had imagined. On the other side of the communicator, Yuan Shua had finished speaking. When he saw that Li Hao had stopped moving, he couldn't help but shake his head. "Young man, you just can't hold your temper. Are you cultivating while listening?" After giving it some thought, he realized that the fellow might have already absorbed a portion of the mysterious energy. Yuan Shua smiled and hung up the communication. He shook his head and said, "He's still too young. He looks smart, but he's actually very stupid." There was no sound after he started cultivating, so it's obvious that he absorbed the mysterious energy. In that case, the Li family's sword is by his side, or is it simply on him? If it's by your side, it's too obvious. Then it's on your body. Yuan Shua thought for a moment and was a little surprised. "Good boy, the Li family's sword is not simple. I thought it was really a big sword, so it's that small jade pendant. If Li Hao were here, he would probably feel his scalp go numb." Yuan Shua, on the other hand, recalled the jade pendant that Li Hao was wearing. He shook his head again and chuckled. "Amazing, I'm afraid this sword is not simple. I don't feel any difference, and it's so small. If I hadn't seen it before, I wouldn't have guessed that it was the Li family's sword. I've passed the 5 birds breathing technique to this kid. I wonder how much I've gained. It's been sealed for so many years, and there might not be much mysterious energy on that sword. If I'm lucky, I'll be able to obtain superpowers. If I'm unlucky, after absorbing it, I'll be able to cut 5 or 6 times, not 10 times, right?" Yuan Shua made a judgment based on his own experience. It was still not safe. This matter was not that simple. A superpower that appeared 15 years ago. Even if there was no improvement in the past 15 years, the weakest one would be over 100. It was definitely not something that ordinary people could deal with. It had even exceeded 100 and reached the 1000-man combat in martial arts. In that case, firearms would be almost useless. If the power was too great, they would be killed before they could kill the enemy. While Yuan Shuo was thinking about this, Li Hao was also absorbing the mysterious energy. So many. Li Hao's consciousness was still clear, as it was much stronger than the bubble sword. At this moment, he was facing the sky, his heart in shock. His teacher's breathing technique of 5 birds was so powerful. It could really absorb the mysterious energy, and at an extremely fast speed. His constitution was transforming. At this moment, Li Hao could even vaguely feel that there were chains in his body that were sealing off the mysterious energy. Otherwise, the mysterious energy would enter some core areas, such as his heart and brain. A superpower lock. Li Hao had some speculations. Could this be the super lock that Lu Yen mentioned before, the lock that separated the mortal world from superpowers? Too many. Li Hao didn't have time to think. In the next moment, he felt that he had absorbed too much, and his body was about to explode. This feeling was even more than drinking 10 cups of water. Practice martial arts. The next moment, Li Hao jumped up and hit his head. His body was covered in dazzling starlight. At the side, the Black Panther's eyes were wide open, and it kept sticking out its tongue to lick. Not only that, the Black Panther seemed to have realized something. It suddenly lifted its limbs, and its breathing rhythm was exactly the same as Li Hao's. Li Hao didn't hide his practice of the breathing technique of 5 birds from this guy, nor did he want to hide it from a dog. At this moment, the mysterious energy exuding from Li Hao's body suddenly stopped spreading, and instead rushed toward the Black Panther. The Black Panther's 4 limbs were facing upwards, and its breathing was regulated. Every breath it took was also dazzling like starlight. In the small room, a person was jumping around like a monkey. A dog that looked like a human with its 4 limbs facing up was swallowing and spitting starlight. It was especially horrifying. Chapter 55. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 17. Second visit, please collect and recommend, _1 translator. 549690339. In the room, starlight energy flickered, but it did not overflow. Outside the room, even if there were people, even supers, they could not see or feel it. The mysterious energy that was overflowing from the starry sky sword didn't have a large range of radiation. After a certain range, it would quickly dissipate and disappear into the space. Moreover, Heibao was here. The overflowing mysterious energy had been completely absorbed by this guy, and there was no overflow. Li Hao had overdone it. At this moment, he felt full of energy and was restless. He kept practicing the ape art for 3 minutes per round, but Li Hao had no idea how many rounds he had practiced. He felt that if he didn't vent it out, he would explode. I've absorbed too much. Even so, Li Hao didn't stop practicing the breathing technique of 5 birds. Of course, it wasn't the complete version, but the breathing technique was still in use. The breathing technique of 5 birds could actually be divided into 2 small parts. One was the complete version, which was a combination of the posture and the breathing technique. The other was a non-matching posture. In fact, a simple breathing technique could also absorb some mysterious energy, but the effect was not as good as a matching posture. Ha! A muffled shout sounded. Li Hao, who had been jumping non-stop, suddenly stopped. His hands were like ape hooves as he grabbed at the wall. The ape art was not just a light body technique. In the past, Li Hao rarely used the ape art's killing technique, because there was no need for it. At this moment, there was too much energy in Li Hao's body. He couldn't bear it. In addition, he would soon be in danger. He didn't care about this. He bent his hands like an ape waving its claws. Bang! Hiss! Li Hao took a deep breath. It hurts. After all, his hand was still made of flesh. When he clawed at the wall, a few small holes appeared. However, Li Hao's fingers were in so much pain that his nails were almost knocked off. However, Li Hao couldn't care less about the pain. He instantly looked at the wall, and his eyes flickered. Using his hands to grab the wall and make a few small holes in the flat wall was something that he couldn't do before. The contact area of his fingers was too small, so he could not exert much force. Moreover, the wall was smooth, and there was a lack of strength to grab it. It was not an earth wall, but a painted cement wall. Previously, Lu Long's punch was even more powerful when he punched through the kitchen wall. Furthermore, the kitchen of the Zhang family was only made of red bricks. Of course, he was still very strong. However, the current me seems to be much stronger than before. Li Hao was secretly shocked. Today, he only practiced the breathing technique of 5 birds, but he suddenly felt that he had become much stronger. Of course, this had something to do with him being too weak. The weaker it was, the more obvious the improvement. At Lu Long's level, there were many mysteries, but to them, it was just a drop in the bucket. It was impossible for there to be much changes. Teacher's technique is still the best. Li Hao observed his fingers. They had been red and his nails were dark purple. At this moment, as the mysterious energy continued to surge in, these small injuries quickly disappeared. Li Hao also felt that his muscles had tightened. His blood seemed to be flowing even faster. The bone armor was also slowly changing. That feeling, strictly speaking, was compression. Yes, the mysterious energy seemed to have compressed Li Hao a little. The original Li Hao was about 178 centimeters tall, not too tall, but not short either. At this moment, although Li Hao didn't measure his height, he felt that he was a little shorter. Perhaps it was only 1 centimeter or less, but Li Hao still felt that he was short. It was being compressed. His muscles were tight, and the gaps between his bones were even smaller. If this continues, I won't become much shorter, right? Li Hao felt a little strange. Lu Long was quite tall. In the past, he had never seen anyone practice martial arts until they became shorter. Of course, they had all started training at a young age. Unlike Li Hao, he had only started training at the ancient academy 3 years ago, and he hadn't put much effort into it during those 2 years. Li Hao didn't delay. The next moment, he suddenly opened his right hand. Instead of grabbing at the wall with his 5 fingers closed like before, Li Hao now opened his fingers and grabbed at the wall in front of him. Bang! Bang! With a crisp sound, mixed with some unpleasant sounds of nails rubbing against each other, his 5 fingers pierced directly into the wall. The hole was not deep, only leaving a palm print on the wall, but he did not touch the concrete structure inside. But this time, the entire wall seemed to shake slightly. Perhaps it was just Li Hao's illusion. However, Li Hao felt that it was even more lethal than before. Tiger Claw. This was the attack method of the tiger fighting technique in the new book of 5 birds. Li Hao wasn't very familiar with the other 4 birds technique, but that didn't mean he didn't know it. Yuan Shua had taught him all of them, but Li Hao mainly used the ape technique. He felt that the tiger fighting technique was better for attacking. Sure enough, when the tiger claw struck out just now, the way it was exerted was different. It wasn't just a change in posture, but also an adjustment in breathing. The different way of exerting force immediately made Li Hao feel that the tiger claw struck out with more force. The ape art's ape hooves explored the way, and its movements were light and fast, but the strength it used was far inferior to the tiger's claws. The tiger fighting technique is indeed the most suitable for attacking among the 5 birds technique. Li Hao felt the subtle changes in his body, and he was moved. His strength had increased. His muscles reacted faster, and his body felt lighter. It was as if he used to run with weights on his back, but now, he felt like he was running with less weights. Was this the effect of the mysterious energy? Chapter 56. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 17. Second Visit, 2, Translator. 549690339. It was too obvious. No wonder the Black Panther's fur immediately became shiny after drinking water on the first day. Back then, Li Hao had thought that the effects might be different because the Black Panther was a dog. But today, after thinking about it carefully, Li Hao cursed in his heart. It must be the first bowl of water that Heibao drank, there must be more mystery in it. He drank the second bowl of water that day, and Black Panther had already drunk the first bowl. Did he only drink some leftover water? Thinking of Black Panther, Li Hao seemed to have thought of something. Heibao didn't do anything today. Li Hao turned his head and was stunned. At this moment, Black Panther's belly was facing the sky. He mimicked Li Hao's earlier actions, and his breathing rhythm was similar to Li Hao's. This guy was cultivating. What the hell? Li Hao was a little dazed. Black Panther understood his words, and Li Hao could understand. But this guy's learning ability was so strong. It was actually learning from him and practicing the breathing technique of 5 birds. As Li Hao stopped his cultivation, the mysterious energy no longer overflowed from the jade sword, and the mysterious energy in the room gradually dissipated. A moment later, Li Hao was still watching, and the Black Panther could no longer absorb the mysterious energy. It opened its dog eyes and saw Li Hao staring at it. The Black Panther leaped up and pounced at Li Hao. Li Hao dodged slightly, avoiding the Black Panther's attack. The Black Panther did not care. It fell to the ground and stuck out its tongue to lick Li Hao's foot. Go away. Li Hao kicked his legs, bent over, and touched the Black Panther's head. Frowning, he said, "Are you trying to become a spirit?" He was thinking whether this was a good or bad thing. The Black Panther actually felt like it was about to become a demon. As an ordinary person and a member of the inspection division, Li Hao's first thought was whether this would lead to bad consequences. However, when he thought of those supers and the red shadow that ordinary people could not see, Li Hao lost all other thoughts. In this day and age, who would care if a dog became a spirit or not? What was that red shadow? He was obviously not human. The Black Panther was familiar with him and could be considered as half-raised by him. If it really became a spirit, then it would become a spirit. Teacher said that the breathing technique of 5 birds can't be taught to outsiders. Li Hao looked at the Black Panther and felt a headache. It's all right. It's just an imitation. I did learn the essence of the breathing technique, but I don't think I learned any essence of the 5 birds coiling technique. Breathing techniques were about rhythm, and the breathing needed to be adjusted in coordination with the breathing through the pores. This dog had actually imitated it to 80% perfection. The 5 birds coiling technique, which was the 5 hearts facing the sky posture, was not as simple as it seemed on the surface. It also required some unique techniques, which the Black Panther did not learn. Moreover, humans were different from dogs. Even if he learned it, this guy might not be able to use it. The breathing technique was stolen. I was too careless. Under normal circumstances, even if he were to cultivate a breathing technique, he wouldn't forget himself too much. He wouldn't even use the entire breathing technique in front of others. If there was even the slightest mistake, the entire breathing technique would be wasted. But there was only a dog in front of him, so Li Hao didn't care too much. His breathing was heavy, and Black Panther saw everything. The Black Panther seemed to have understood something. It raised its head and looked at Li Hao with a fawning look. Li Hao frowned and said in a deep voice, "I know you can understand. In the future, unless I'm by your side, you're not allowed to use this. Also, when I'm free, I'll go find teacher. And see if he's willing to take in a dog as a disciple." Li Hao suddenly laughed. It was as if he was scolding himself. Forget it, just pretend I didn't say anything. He had wanted to tease his teacher, but after thinking about it, he decided not to. His teacher was not one to stick to the rules. If he really wanted to say that this dog was his student, he would introduce it to him when he went out. "This is my student, Li Hao. This is my student, Big Black Dog." At that time, he would have to dig underground. The Black Panther, on the other hand, was a little confused. It only looked at Li Hao. Seeing him smile, the Black Panther also laughed and wagged its tail. The dog was human. It knew that Li Hao was happy, angry, sad, and happy. In fact, it was a little scared. Li Hao smiled, which meant that he was fine. Li Hao didn't dwell on this matter. He would report it to his teacher when he had the time. Given his teacher's personality, he was probably just curious and wouldn't mind a dog learning his breathing technique. Ignoring the Black Panther, Li Hao took out the jade sword in front of his chest and examined it. His eyes lit up. Mysterious energy. There seems to be a lot of mysterious energy in the jade sword. Of course, to other people, the mysterious energy might not be the key. What they cared more about was the jade sword itself. According to his teacher, the mysterious energy in the super items was limited. Some of them were already at an extremely low level. Perhaps after one or two more uses, the mysterious energy would be completely depleted. Lu Long didn't care much about this, perhaps because he knew. He might have felt that the mysterious energy in these items was too little and was not of much use. He might not be able to use the family's super items, so he did not care. Perhaps Li Hao was too worried. He had originally guessed that Lu Long was secretly planning something, but now it seemed that he might not be so. "They don't care, but I do," Li Hao muttered in a low voice. His teacher felt that it was too little and useless to him. Lu Long was also someone who had broken through the top 100, so he felt that it was useless. However, Li Hao was a weakling who hadn't even cut 10. Even a little bit of mysterious energy was enough for him to improve by a large margin. "My speed, strength, and constitution have all increased. Now that I'm being tested again, what level of strength do I have?" Chapter 57. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 17. Second visit, 3, translator. 549690339. The probability of cutting 10 was less than that. Not that fast. Moreover, compared to Qin Jian, who had attacked him before, Li Hao felt that he might be able to avoid the other party's slap now, but it was almost impossible to say that he had a 50-50 chance of winning against Qin Jian. And Qin Jian was at the realm of cutting 10. As for whether it would be 10 or 90, it was hard to say. According to Li Hao's understanding, the difference between cutting 10 and breaking 100 was actually quite big. Apart from Lu Long, the other 4 members of the demon hunting team seemed to be in the stage of killing 10 people. However, there were also strong and weak people among them. On the surface, Lu Yan was the strongest, but she said that Dr. Yunyao shouldn't be provoked. "I'm afraid I haven't reached 10 yet. I still need to work harder, at least. To save my life." In the upcoming crisis, he had to save his own life. The red shadow was not to be trifled with. Continue cultivating. This time, Li Hao didn't use the breathing technique. He still had some mysterious energy left in his body. At the moment, he was full of energy, which was enough for him to continue practicing the 5 birds technique. He had to seize every moment. Since he could improve, there was no reason to slack off. At the same time. Qiming Community, Building 5, Floor 6. Lu Long crossed his arms and stood on the balcony. He looked at building number 6 across the street. The window of a unit on the 3rd floor was closed and the curtains were drawn. He could vaguely see people jumping around. It was Li Hao's house. Beside Lu Long, the tall and thin Wu Chao was also watching. After a while, he shook his head. This guy drew the curtains even before it got dark. He's still on guard. I'm afraid he's already suspected that Zhang Yuan's case is a murder case. After saying that, he looked at Lu Long and said, "Boss, are we just going to keep watch like this? Will anyone come?" "I don't know, keep an eye on it," Lu Long said calmly. Wu Chao didn't say anything more about this. He looked in other directions, glanced around, and said in a low voice, "Boss, our position is the best for observation. However, I've just done a little investigation and there are no strangers coming to Building 5. Is there no one watching Li Hao, or is he being watched by some supernatural means? There was no need for someone to come personally to follow them. For example, there were some superpowers that could follow people quietly. However, it was rare for superpowers to follow a normal person." Lu Long didn't deny it, but he didn't think that there was really a superhuman following them. It was more likely that the other party was only observing in secret. The time was not yet up, and they were waiting for the arrival of the rainy night as Li Hao had said. Li Hao was here, and he wouldn't run away. If he wanted to run, he would have run long ago. Since that was the case, it didn't matter whether he followed them or not. After considering for a moment, Lu Long did not continue this topic, but said in a low voice, "How much mysterious energy do we have left?" Wu Chao thought for a moment and said, 12 cubic meters. 10 cubic meters have attributes. The other 2 have no attributes." Lu Long seemed to be thinking about something, and after a while, he said, "Tomorrow, when Li Hao goes to the inspection office, tell him to come see me. Extract the 2 attribute. Less mysterious energy and let him try to absorb it." Wu Chao wasn't too surprised, but he was a little envious. "Boss, we don't have many left. The non-elemental one is more precious. Why don't we give him the elemental one?" The mysterious energy with attributes was mixed with some special powers, such as fire and lightning, but it might not be compatible with the person. Of course, if he met a match or a super who specialized in that attribute, it would be better to have an attribute. It varied from person to person. However, to martial masters like Wu Chao who had not advanced to the level of a super, attribute. Less martial arts were more precious. This was because it could improve one's strength, and there would be no rejection. The danger was very low. In a team, everyone would pay more attention to attribute. Less mystic abilities. "He's too weak," Lu Long said calmly, "we're not the night patrolman. There's no expert who can extract the mysterious energy at any time. Once we absorb it and reject it, it'll be difficult for us to control and suppress it. His body will explode. After we kill him, you'll be in charge of being the bait." "Alright," Wu Chao stopped talking. Li Hao was indeed too weak. He had just joined the team, so it was only right to give him some benefits to improve himself. It was just that Wu Chao still had a doubt, and he said softly, "Boss, are you recruiting him for a one-time thing? Or do you really intend to keep training him?" This was also what he was puzzled about. Lu Long glanced at him and laughed, "If you can survive, then you'll always be teammates. As long as he's still alive, he's a comrade. What's his is his, he'll protect what he needs to protect, and he'll teach what he needs to teach. If he's dead, what's the point of saying anything?" Wu Chao understood. He had also been through this. Survival of the fittest. Only the ones who survived in the demon hunting squad were teammates. There was nothing they could do about the ones who died. From the first day they joined the squad, everyone understood how dangerous it was to hunt supers. Without a story or a goal, he probably wouldn't join. It's better to be a newcomer. He sighed with emotion. Newcomers didn't have to do anything and could get benefits just by entering. He was envious. Of course, this was also a rule. If the newbies were too weak and didn't have any protective measures, the team would gradually lose the new blood and become weaker and weaker, dying sooner or later. However, when they entered before, there was only one mysterious power. Moreover, none of the parties that had joined at the beginning had any reserves. The little reserves they had now were also squeezed out from the gaps between their teeth. Wu Chao thought about it and said with some anticipation, I don't know if we can get rid of him this time. How much mysterious energy can he provide? Is it attribute.less or attribute.based? Boss, if you absorb more, will you be able to level up? Chapter 58. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 17. Second visit, please collect and recommend, _4 translator. 549690339. Lu Long shook his head and did not say anything. Advancement. Difficult. If he couldn't successfully draw energy into his body to advance to a Starlight Master the first time, it would only make his martial cultivation, physique, and strength stronger, and it would be more difficult to advance in the future. He was a martial master who was over 100. If he wanted to advance, he would probably need a few more times. It would be best if he could find a matching mystic ability. Although attribute.less mysterious energy was useful, it was more useful to improve his physique. Absorbing more of it might not be a good thing. Instead, it would make it harder for him to advance. Sighing in his heart, Lu Long once again looked at the window opposite him and said, You stay here and keep an eye on him. If there's anything, inform me. All right. Lu Long did not say anything more and turned around to leave. Li Hao would probably be fine for the next few days, but it would be hard to say when the rainy season came in a few days. He might be in danger at any time. Not long after Lu Long's departure, the sky gradually darkened, and very quickly, the night completely fell. In the room, Li Hao was still practicing the ape art. The amount of time he persisted was getting longer and longer. The sweat on the ground had already made the ground wet and slippery. Just as Li Hao was about to continue his practice, the black panther, which had been lying on the ground, suddenly started barking. Li Hao's heart moved. Someone's here. The next moment, Li Hao's heart skipped a beat, and even his breathing stopped. Soon, Li Hao returned to his original state and began to practice the ape art again, but this time, he was much weaker. At this moment, Li Hao was extremely shocked. And fear. From the corner of his eye, he saw a red shadow appear on his window. The red blood shadow was stuck to the window. The red shadow was here. This was the first time that Li Hao had seen a red shadow in his own home. Is Lu Long nearby? Did he see that? Can you see it? Damn it. Li Hao was a little anxious. Was the red shadow monitoring him? He could only pretend to be calm and pretend he didn't see anything. After practicing the ape art once, Li Hao looked very tired and stopped practicing. The red shadow was still floating on the window. It wasn't through the curtains, but through the curtains and stuck to the glass. Li Hao guessed that the superhuman behind the red shadow was also nearby. Would he attack him now? He was too bold. The Zhang family's destruction had just happened yesterday, and the other party dared to appear tonight. This showed that he didn't put Lu Long and the others in his eyes at all. What do we do? The red shadow didn't leave. Li Hao was very anxious. In order to hide his uneasiness, he could only go into the bathroom and take a bath. The moment he took a shower, his hair stood on end. Soon, Li Hao forced himself to calm down. He didn't dare to look or think too much, for he was afraid that the red shadow would notice him. At this moment, the red shadow was actually right beside him. Damn it! In the small bathroom, Li Hao and the red shadow were almost stuck together. Don't worry. The other party only appeared to stare at me and didn't attack me immediately. It definitely isn't to kill me now. According to teacher's speculation, now isn't the time either. Relax, I didn't see him. Martial arts is so cool. Lu Yan's breasts are so big. Will she be a burden in a fight? He shifted his gaze, shifted his thoughts, and continued to let his imagination run wild. He was afraid that he would be frightened if he kept thinking about it. The jade sword in front of his chest didn't have any reaction, just like an ordinary jade pendant. Li Hao didn't know if the red shadow would think too much about it, but he couldn't care less at this moment. Li Hao didn't care that the red shadow had seen his naked body. Who would consider this at this time? My situation is getting more and more dangerous. As Li Hao's imagination ran wild, time slowly passed. It was not until he finished his bath that the red shadow disappeared without a trace. In the living room, the Black Panther had been lying on the ground the entire time, extremely quiet. Only when the red shadow disappeared did the Black Panther let out a sigh of relief. At the same time, Li Hao heaved a sigh of relief. The man and the dog looked at each other, but neither of them made a sound. As for the Black Panther, there was still some doubt in his dog eyes. You can see it too. I thought you were blind. So powerful, you acted like you didn't see it, even more of a dog than me. P.S. 100,000 words. Please give me some monthly votes. Even if it's not on the shelves, you can still cast your monthly votes. Chapter 59. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 18 _ Starlight Master, Mysterious Energy Translator. 549690339 in the room. Li Hao felt a sense of relief after a disaster. 2 times. For the past 2 days, the red shadow had been approaching him. Did this mean that the other party was about to make a move? Therefore, the red shadow had been observing him for the past 2 days. It was like observing if the pigs they raised had gained weight. Could he be killed? How much meat would they get if they killed him? Yes, that was exactly what Li Hao was feeling right now. The red shadow's observation seemed to be an appreciation. Was his crop ripe? Damn it! Li Hao cursed in an inaudible voice. What do you take me for? In the past, Li Hao could only accept his fate, but he had to take a gamble. Now, he refused to accept his fate. The jade sword was an extraordinary item. He had also learned his teacher's breathing technique, come into contact with the supernatural realm, and could absorb mysterious energy. Why did he have to accept his fate now? No matter how strong he is, he's not strong enough to have no worries. Li Hao gritted his teeth. If he was really so powerful that he wasn't afraid, why would he be so careful? He was still afraid. Who was he afraid of? He was definitely afraid of the night patrollers. There must be someone more powerful than the Red Shadow among the night watchers, so the Red Shadow didn't dare to make too much noise. Why are you scaring yourself? Li Hao comforted himself. Looking at Black Panther, he couldn't help but curse in a low voice, "You're such a waste. Every time I see you, you're always so terrified." The Black Panther dog's eyes were filled with innocence. "I'm just a dog, very weak. If you're afraid, I'm afraid too." Besides, Heibao felt that it was normal to be scared since he was still young. A man and a dog were sitting in the living room, paralyzed. They didn't speak for a long time. After a while, Li Hao suddenly picked up his communicator and dialed a number. This time, he was not looking for his teacher. After waiting for a while, Lu Long's cold and arrogant voice came from the other side of the communication device, "Speak." There was no prelude, just one word. "I feel like someone is watching me." Oh. Lu Long's reaction was calm, without any fluctuations. Li Hao thought for a moment. Could it be that this person felt that he had discovered the demon hunting squad's tracking? However, the Red Shadow was not a demon hunting squad. Guessing that Lu Long might have misunderstood, Li Hao was silent for a while before saying, "I don't know how to put it. I just felt that when I was in the room just now, I suddenly felt a cold and gloomy feeling. I have a stray dog at home. It suddenly barked and then lay on the ground, motionless. I just checked and it even peed." What? Lu Long was stunned. Cold, barking, peed. He suddenly realized something and could no longer remain calm. His cold voice rang out again, "Are you sure?" Li Hao kicked Black Panther. Black Panther seemed to be depressed. "Peed. You're the one who peed. Your entire family peed their pants. Unfortunately, it couldn't open its mouth to speak, so the Black Panther could only accept its fate. Li Hao didn't even blush when he lied. He immediately said, "I'm sure." "Understood." Lu Long's voice was solemn. After some consideration, he said in a deep voice, "Don't move now and don't say anything. I'll go over later, but I won't show myself. From tomorrow onwards, I will follow you in secret. Don't reveal anything." He didn't ask Li Hao not to go home and live in the inspection office. He still needed Li Hao to be exposed. Li Hao didn't say anything. He simply nodded and said, "Boss, so I'm not going to do anything now. Don't worry about it." Lu Long's voice was cold and solemn. "You only have one mission. If you feel this feeling again, you don't have to do anything else. Just pull open the curtains. I'm afraid that I won't have the chance to pull it open." Li Hao muttered. Lu Long seemed to have realized this as well, and after some consideration, he said, "Come to the inspection office tomorrow and look for me directly." "All right." Li Hao agreed readily. With his intelligence, he could guess that Lu Long might be able to dig out something good. This would be the best. If he could deceive. Cough, cough, if he could get something, then he would ask for some benefits. A crying child would get milk. In the demon hunting squad, if you didn't say anything, you might not get anything. Lu Long felt that he was very petty. Today was his first day in the squad, and he didn't give anything. At least Lu Yen said that she could take any hot weapons she wanted. Who? After hanging up, Li Hao sat on the ground and fell into deep thought again. Soon, he looked at the palm print on the wall and frowned. The red shadow. Did you see it? It was not a big deal to observe him. Superhumans would not care about a fake martial master who could not even kill 10. If they really thought that this was Li Hao's hidden strength, it would be a good thing. Li Hao still had the mysterious ability of the Jade Sword, and he also knew the breathing art. In the next few days, he might improve every day. Judging himself with his current strength, it would be useful in confusing his opponents. Even if he did, he might not be a threat to supers, but Li Hao would not give up. It was a peaceful night. 14th of July. The sky was clear. Another night passed, and the appearance of the red shadow still did not attract anyone's attention. Li Hao had a good night's sleep. Before he left, he gave the Black Panther a few more words of advice and left some dog food for it, then rode his bicycle to work. Li Hao didn't know if Lu Long had come last night. He could not ask as he only remembered that he was going to look for Lu Long today to see if he could get some benefits. It would be best if he could get himself some powerful super items. Of course, it was mostly wishful thinking. In the confidential room. Li Hao was still working here. As soon as he entered, Chen Na arrived even earlier than him. Excited to see Li Hao, she hurriedly beckoned him over. Chapter 60. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 18. Starlight Master, Mysterious Energy, 2, Translator. 549690339. Li Hao felt a little strange. What was this guy doing here so early? Chen Na was the colleague he was most familiar with since he came to the inspection office. They had a good relationship and were closer than the others. They were also the youngest in the confidential room. Li Hao. Good news. Chen Na said excitedly when she saw Li Hao. What's wrong? There's going to be a new member in the room, have you forgotten? Every year, this is the time to recruit new people. We're finally free. In the future, we don't have to come early to clean the house or serve tea. Chen Na was very excited. She and Li Hao were both newcomers. Of course, she was a little earlier than Li Hao, so Li Hao had more work to do. However, there were some things that Chen Na still had to do, such as organizing documents. Sometimes, Li Hao couldn't handle it alone. Recruit new people. Li Hao was slightly stunned. He had almost forgotten about this. Besides, it wasn't a big deal. He was about to leave the critical room. In fact, he was no longer a member of the critical room. He just hadn't been informed yet. So this was the reason. Li Hao smiled and looked happy. Good news. Then we'll be free. I was wondering why you came so early today. Don't tell me you're a newcomer. Chen Na nodded and said happily, yeah. In fact, I've already chosen them, but they've been training recently. They're officially here today. That's good. Li Hao laughed as well, accompanying Chen Na. He should be happy. Otherwise, if he left and there were no more newcomers, Chen Na would have to take over Li Hao's work, and this person would be furious. A few newbies. 2. No, 3. Chen Na was well informed. She laughed. I heard that there were only 2 people at first, but I think one more person was added. There are 3 people. It's better than us. When I came, I was the only newcomer. You were a transfer student. I did all the work by myself. It's not that tiring for people to have 3 at once. Li Hao responded and nodded. In fact, he really didn't take it seriously. When the chief came later, he still had to go and take attendance, and then go to the law enforcement team. He still had official business to do, so he didn't have the time to care about this. However, he was a good person and an honest man in the secrets room. Even if he left, he couldn't ruin his character and had to accompany Happy. As they were talking, the others arrived one after another. Li Hao started to get busy again. As usual, he didn't slack off just because he was leaving. Wang Jie arrived at around 9 o'clock. Not only him, but there were also 3 newcomers behind him. They were all very young, 2 men and 1 woman. Everyone, quiet down. Wang Jie had a smile on his face. He clapped his hands and said loudly, let go of what you're doing first. Actually, other than Chen Na and Li Hao, the others had already read the gossip and didn't have anything to do. Wang Jie didn't seem to see this and laughed. There are 3 new people in the Essentials room today, and they are all elites. Being able to join the Importance room represents their strength and ability. After a round of praise, the 3 newcomers appeared. At this moment, Li Hao stopped what he was doing and looked at the 3 newcomers, 2 men and 1 woman. They were all wearing inspector uniforms and looked very heroic. He didn't pay much attention to the woman, but focused on the young man on the left. He was very young, even younger than Li Hao, probably only 18 or 19 years old. Of course, it was hard to say his exact age. He was very handsome and very sunny. Li Hao was usually known as the most handsome man in the secrets room. Of course, this was a little exaggerated. After all, the people in the secrets room were all uncles and aunties, and there were not many young people. However, Li Hao wasn't ugly. Compared to the guy in front of him, he was a little worse. The most obvious difference was his skin. The young man's skin was fair, but it wasn't pale. It was milky white and looked tender. Big Sister Yu's eyes were shining at this moment. She had always wanted Li Hao to be her son.in.law. Perhaps she had changed her mind and wanted him to be her son.in.law. Chen Na also took a few more glances. She even looked at Li Hao and suddenly chuckled. Li Hao, did you see that? Your biggest competitor is here. That guy's called Wang Ming, right? I'm even more handsome than you. Li Hao smiled and nodded. It's good that Sister Na likes it. TSK. I don't like cute little dogs. Even though she said that, Chen Na still took a few more glances and couldn't help but say, his eyes are so bright. Yes, it was very bright. He looked especially energetic. The eyes were a person's first window. If a person was handsome, their gaze would be weak and make them feel dispirited and useless, but this man called Wang Ming's eyes were also very bright. Hello everyone, hello seniors. I'm Wang Ming, from the Inspection College, and I just graduated this year. Wang Ming introduced himself. Soon, Wang Jia and Wang Ming came to Li Hao's side. Glancing at Li Hao and Chen Na, Wang Jia said with a smile, Li Hao, Chen Na, you're both seniors now. Wang Ming, you learn from Li Hao first and familiarize yourself with the files in his hands. Chen Na and Li Hao, you too teach him. He had asked Wang Ming to study with the two of them not because he was special, but because Li Hao was leaving. Chen Na didn't know about this, but Wang Jia did. Therefore, he had to find someone to replace Li Hao. Wang Ming was very suitable. Sure, Chen Na giggled, should we prepare a new desk? No need. Wang Jia smiled. Just bring a chair over. We'll make do for a few days. Chen Na was a little confused, but she didn't ask further. She would just make do with a few days.